played this game, seriously, what are you doing? Go play this game. Vampire the Masquerade works because of its level design, and I'm going to show you something that should look familiar to you if you've played the game before. In this crude picture, the stick figures are enemies, or potential enemies. The dollar signs are potential goals, mini goals in the level. There's a car radio, which is the lowest dollar sign, and then there's $250 hidden in a small vent, which is the upper dollar sign. The black cylinder is an explodable heater of some sort. I forget what they call it, radiator, I guess. And the giant G is your goal point. The blue man is a drug dealer, and you've been sent by Mercurio to procure the astrolite, which is an explosive, from this drug lord who stole it from him. And there's many ways you can do this. You start where the arrow is. There's a hole in the fence, I should point out. I've circled it to helpfully point your eyes there. It's not immediately obvious, but you can peel planks away from the fence, and you can walk through it. The pink man near the start of the level is an NPC guard you can converse with, and you can convince him to let you onto the premise, or he's going to be your first obstacle to getting inside. I sort of talked about good level design in my hour and 45-minute video about Dragon Age 2, but I really don't expect people to watch that, unfortunately, even though I put all that work into that. It was sort of for my own indulgence. I know you guys can't watch that, so for the sake of brevity, we're not going to go through every single solution for this level, as there are technically many, but there are 3 main solutions I'd like to cover and explain why this level is so well designed. The first solution is run and gun. This is the most obvious one, and it's going to be the one that's going to be present in most games made today. You run through the beginning point, you run up the stairs into the house, you shoot all the guys, they drop dead, you get the goal, you get the mini goals, you walk out. It's pretty simple. The thing about it is that it's going to cost you resources. At the beginning of the game, you don't have much money. In fact, you don't even have enough money to get a gun, so you're going to have to kill a police officer or something to get a gun to do this. And you're going to have to get some ammo somehow. And that ammo is going to be a little expensive. You're probably going to end up using it all, because the beginning guns in the game are terrible. So this method is probably the most expensive, and it should be the most risky, because it's the simplest, mindless one that you could do. I'd like to note that all of the alternative solutions to this level can decay into this one, because if you, for instance, if you take the car stereo and you haven't made the enemies hostile yet, they're going to go hostile on you because you stole their car stereo, and the car stereo is the mini goal on the bottom. And they're not going to grow if you take the larger sum of money hidden away, because no one can see you take that. But if you do certain parts of this mission wrong on the alternative solutions, you're going to aggro everyone, you're going to have to kill them all. Generally, you can't aggro only 1 or 2 of these guys. It's pretty difficult to isolate them so that you don't get everyone else upset. Especially if you use a gun. I believe a gun is so noisy that all the enemies are aggroed if you use one. The yellow route is the persuasion route. This is probably the more common route that people take in the game, because most people don't want to do combat. And so all you do is you talk to the pink guy, you just tell him, you know, let me in, and you can do that depending on what skills you're proficient in. If you're Nosferatu, you have no chance of it, I'm pretty sure. For any other clan, you can talk to him if you have enough seduction or persuasion or intimidation skill, and you can convince him to let you inside. And the other guards don't aggro, they're non-hostile, they're in a state where they don't even really care about you. You can sort of listen to their ambient dialogue. After you do that, you're just going to take the major goal point, because you can't take the car stereo, so that gives you $250, which is enough to buy the astrolite if you lack the sufficient skills to convince the blue man to give it to you for free. And both male and female can convince him to give it to you. Another option you can do is persuade him to let the other man leave the room, and that lets you can then you can drink his blood and kill him. So you can do it sort of hostile or non-hostile, but you don't aggro anyone else in the house whether you do it either way. I think as long as they don't see the body, you're fine. So you can walk out with the goal without having fired a single shot. All you did was convince 2 people, and that's the entire mission. This solution is the most complex of them all, I believe. What you're going to do is you're going to crawl through the hole in the fence, then you're going to go to the radiator, you're going to pull the switch on the breaker box, which is going to kill the lights. One of the guards is going to comment he can take care of it. He's going to go around to the breaker box to turn on the lights again. In the meanwhile, all the guards are in panic state, and they're going to move from the rooms that they're in. The blue man goes to the window left of him, and the other 3 guards, I believe, congregate in the same room. So this gives you a perfect path to exit the facility, provided you have the ability to unlock one of the doors. Opening that door that I've shown here is going to require you have a lockpick and a sufficient skill in lockpicking. But once you've done that, you can quickly enter the empty room with the astrolite and run out with it. And you can do so without them being alerted to you, or you can actually isolate some of the guards and take them out with stealth kills, and you can clear the room the house that way. What's so nice about this level design is that there's an obvious cost and reward to each one. The persuasion route isn't going to let you get the car stereo, which can sell as much as $75 to the merchant, but it's going to let you get through the entire level without killing anybody, which is great because it's sort of a pain to kill people in the game. And if you're going to do the run and gun route, you can get the car stereo for $75, but you're going to waste some money buying the gun or getting the gun from somebody. You're going to waste some time and money getting the bullets, so that's a pain. But you still get rewarded. You get everything completed, and that's great. You can also just buy the astrolite if you lack the skills, and that's the only solution that you can think of. You can do that route. You don't have to use violence. You never have to resort to it. And the third option is great because you can specialize in a different kind of skill where you're stealthing through the level, you're avoiding combat, but you're doing it in a more strategic sort of way, and that's going to require a skill in lockpicks, and you're going to have to spend $99 on a lockpick, but you're going to have to do that anyway. So each route though has its own costs and benefit to doing it. And this kind of level design is non-linear. By definition, it is non-linear, not because there is a lack of a straight line. I mean, you can have a non-linear level that takes place in a corridor. What makes a level non-linear is the amount of player choice that's given to them. And that's also to say that having a sandbox game doesn't necessarily mean that the game is non-linear. What makes a game linear is when you don't give the player choice. And I don't know if I really want to extol the values of giving players choice. I mean, that's more or less an opinion in game design. It's not really an analysis of any sort. But if you want to make a non-linear game, which I think more games should be non-linear, if you want to say that the game that you made is non-linear, then it has to have only one quality, and that's that the player has a choice. It's that the player isn't required to complete a level in a very specific, singular way. If a level has more than one distinct solution to it, then it is non-linear by definition. So this diagram summarizes what I've been talking about. You can choose to sneak through the fence, and that makes the entire level hostile to you from that point. Or you can talk to the guard, and that makes them non-hostile to you. And non-hostile can always decay into hostile. The run and gun route is always a route that you can take from any state in the level that you're in. You can always go back to that path to complete the level. And you can reach various different goal states from how you solve the level. There's at least 3 paths to completing this level. There's 3 goals. There's one distinct goal state, which is getting the astrolite. The second goal state, which I've named Goal 2, is where you buy the astrolite, because you get actually less experience for doing that. But that's besides the point. There's one goal state that's distinct, let's say, and there are at least 3 unique solutions to getting there. And that is what it means for there to be non-linear level design. If you can take your level and you can convert it into this kind of graph, and you can show that there's at least more than one solution, there's at least 2 solutions, then you have a non-linear level. And so what I want to qualify here is that a level can be non-linear, but we want good non-linear level design. We don't want haphazard level design here. And so when you do a route has a cost to it. It's easier or harder to do a certain thing in a game to complete a level. And if there's a really expensive way of completing a level, chances are players aren't going to take it. And I believe non-linear levels are very fun and much more fun than linear levels when they have this element, when they provide meaningful player choice by punishing you for taking certain routes and rewarding you for doing others. For instance, this is a linear level with a non-linear element towards the end of it. At state C, you have a choice, and that choice leads to one of 2 goal states, but it's not really a significant choice because it's not impacted by your previous choices. It's more or less trivial, and although it's not necessarily bad, it's what people find lacking when they play like Mass Effect 1 through 3, and then they get to the end, and the end is the choice, but the choice that you make is immediate. It wasn't made several states ago, you made it just now, and it seems like all the choices you made leading up to that state were meaningless, and in fact they were. And of course, just adding lots of states to the level doesn't make it nonlinear either. Distinctly, it has to have more than one way to reach the goal. That is what makes it nonlinear. This diagram is an example of good level design. If you pause the video and examine it, a higher value means it's more expensive to traverse to the node there, and a lower value corresponds to an easier route inside the game. So inside the game, at the first node A, you have 3 significant choices, and one choice leads you nowhere, at least as far as the graph shows, and the 2 other choices do lead you to 2 distinct states of the game. And B is the cheapest one, but if you go through and played through the entire graph, you'll note that it costs the same amount of points no matter which one you take to reach the goal node. There are 2 distinct paths to 2 different goal nodes, at least. And that's what makes this example nonlinear. This is an example where there's only one optimal way to complete the level. And this is fine. You can have nonlinear design that's imperfect, where it's not balanced to take other paths, but the result usually is that game isn't very replayable because the second time you've played through the level, or at least after you've finished exploring through the game and you know all the optimal solutions, there's no real point in playing that game again, and I would argue that games that are good are replayable. And of course, this is an example of a nonlinear level that decays into a linear level. And I sort of wanted to brush on the topic of integrating these sorts of things into future games better, because if you're designing a nonlinear level, you should do it this way first. You should make a graph, and then you should translate this sort of graph with player choice into a level. And that way you don't have schizophrenic levels in the end, because it's hard to create complexity, but if you simplify it into this sort of diagram sort of way, you can make your levels as complex as you want them to be, and you can plan for their complexity. And furthermore, you can actually have computers generate nonlinear levels. There's nothing stopping a computer program from taking assets that artists and scripters make and generating these levels dynamically. You can make very deep, complex, role-playing games, strategy games, even platforming games this way. It's not impossible. It's very intuitive, and I feel like there are a lot of people in marketing who have gotten into game design and that they think, they read that study, and I'm sure you've heard of the study too, where I think it was something like a bunch of consumers were tested in a supermarket and they were given like 41 brands of peanut butter or something, or sundae to choose from, and they couldn't decide because there was so much choice, and they sort of came to this conclusion that giving people too much choice is a bad thing. But I think we need to qualify that statement, because I think it's very misleading in that choice is difficult only when you have a lot of unknowns. Like, if we're choosing between 41 brands of peanut butter, we're thinking about how much protein's in the peanut butter, how much does it cost, who made it, is the brand something we're recognizing with. Inside a game, there's a lot fewer variables, and the player can be accommodated and can be explained. Like, if you're playing a game like Diablo and you find 2 items on the ground and you're comparing them, you have to choose between them, but the statistics of each weapon is obvious. One gives +1 strength, one might give +1 damage, and you're choosing between a very small, or if it's not small, it's at least very descriptive things that make them distinct. And we can give players lots of choice as long as we present it and convey it in a consistent and easy to digest way. More choice is better, without a doubt, and presenting players with choice makes the game more fun, and it gives the game more longevity, which is important in an industry which is shifting toward more long-term sales, where you want to give players the impression that their game is great. I mean, Vampire the Masquerade, due to its shoddy programming and the issues over at Troika, didn't sell that well, but it has a cult following, and if Troika had somehow gotten a loan or survived, they would be reaping long-term sales from this game. They'd be having thousands and thousands of people download this game every day because everyone would have heard it from their friend how amazing it was. And it's that kind of marketing and strategy that these designers should be thinking about when they design nonlinear games.